Welcome to the shooting show. We're here in West Yorkshire today and we've got the new Zeiss V8, but this is the version 2 of it with a 30, not 36mm tube. This is the 2.8 to 20 by 56 ASV option, which means it's got the full ballistic turrets. We're going to set up by zeroing this rifle scope, and the first thing and easiest thing to do is to dismantle the turrets. Because this ASV turret has both accurate long-range ballistic dials and also a zero stop, a lot of people get confused by zero stops when they are zeroing to set up, because if you need more negative or positive travel, the zero stop can restrict the overall number of turns on the turret. So the first thing I'll do is I'll expose both the turrets. We've got the right hand side for windage and we've got the upper for elevation. So with a screwdriver, I'm just going to release that. It's under spring tension, lift it apart and take the turret completely apart like that, so that now only this inner one here will actually affect elevation. And if I just put that back in there, that will allow me to turn it and click as normal. These are 1 centimetre clicks at 100 metres or 0.1 milliradians. So the first 3 shots were a little bit high and a little bit left. So I'm going to take a few clicks off the elevation, which on this scope is anti-clockwise. Probably take 2 off, and then I'm just going to go maybe 3 clicks to the right, which again is clockwise. 1, 2, 3. Now this lateral windage turret, you can pull that out and reset it back to 0 with the arrow pointer, because it's just a sprung load there. But when you've actually got the ASV put together, you have to lift the turret to turn it because it locks in position. So I'm just going to take 3 more shots now. Okay, just to average it out, I'm going to put 1 click left back on there, and this time I'm going to assemble the turret. We disassembled the turret to make things easy, and you'll maybe notice there's a small pin here and there's a corresponding pin there. That is what activates your zero stop. So when you put the scope back together, that pin wants to go into the left of the pin in the scope itself, so that when you are using it, it'll go clockwise, i.e. dial upward, for longer distance than 100 metre zero, say, but when it goes back anti-clockwise, it will hit that pin. Now we can reassemble the turret. There are various ASV rings, but just for now I'm using the simple 1 centimetre clicks. So I put that back on there, lined up with 0, pop the spring back in. Because these parts aren't really small and fiddly, you're not likely to lose them, and I would definitely recommend doing this when you are at the range, so that you can double check it. And if you do swap ammo when you're testing other ammunition, you've got the capability of rechanging that zero stop, because now I can't dial below 0. So for example, if I've got some different ammunition that shoots a little bit higher, I would need to dial that down. I'm just going to reload with the same ammunition again. When you're setting up any long-range ballistics on either a scope turret or binoculars, it is critical to actually chronograph the ammunition you're using in the real world to make sure that's the speed it's doing in your barrel, or what speed it is doing in your barrel. If it's a bit slower than it says on the box, that is nothing unusual at all. And if you're using a shorter barreled rifle, for example like this 20-inch 223 here, it will be slower. But don't worry about it, that's not necessarily going to give you a problem for your accuracy. Now, for whatever reason, that struck about 1 centimetre low. So I'm going to pick that up, one click for 1 centimetre, and I'm going to unlock the top of here with the finger dial, and I can just turn that collar without any tools at all to indicate the new 0. So my 0 stop now is actually out by 1 click, but to be fair, the 0 stop, as long as it's close, that's good enough, depending unless you're going to dial a lot of negative onto a turret. There's a little groove in here which allows it to slot on and hold position neatly. Depending on wind conditions and things like that, this can be a bit of an iterative process, but generally speaking, it's not difficult to do as long as you dismantle the 0 stop. Okay, this is now the 55 grain GMX, and I'm going to aim at the top right target. It looks like that's a perfect example of a round that strikes a little higher, and I would then need to readjust and to reset the 0 stop again. You can separate zeroing this actual scope for when you have maybe done all your ammunition testing anyway, but I'm just demonstrating this on camera today just to show you how easy it is on the Zeiss, because you don't need a huge amount of tools to do things, just a single flat blade screwdriver. This is now 53 grain Hornady VMAX Superformance. And now for my last group, I'm just going to go back to the 55 grain VMAX because it's the ammunition I've used for the longest, it's the one I've got most surety in, and it's the one I've got the most of. These are real world field conditions. I'm not shooting in a tunnel, there's breeze blowing around, so I'm always looking for what's going to be the average shooting 0. Anyway, looks after several different ammunition types, a little bit of tweaking, twiddling with the turrets and dials. We've now got 0 done precisely, and we've got plenty of ammunition chronographed, so we've got a good average speed readout to plug into further ballistic calculations for either the ASV turrets or the Zeiss binoculars. The V8 arrives with a ring on it here, which gives it in centimetre clicks or milliradian adjustments. Now, although some people prefer to work in those, there is the option of using the ASV rings. 9 rings are supplied, and the instruction manual also gives you the most appropriate ring for your ballistics. You can also do it through a smartphone because it programs in a similar way to Zeiss's range-finding binoculars. When you've decided which ring you want to try, loosen the top of the elevation turret here, and the previous ring will lift off. So that's the factory ring in milliradians. The app tells me I need number 6, which is here, and it says very, very delicately there, number 6. So once the rifle is zeroed, the 0 stop set up, I put the rifle so that 1 is there because I'm using a 100 metre 0. Then I just put the top cap back on, and when I need to dial to the corresponding range, say 200 metres, I would lift and dial to 200 metres. 300 metres will be there, etc, etc. This is a learning process, and once you've set it up, it's great to try it and always good to practice. It's very important to set up the ballistics as carefully as possible because good data in will give good results back out. But don't be afraid to check it, test it, and if you've got it incorrect the first time, try again. This is my first attempt today using ring number 6 on this one. If I need to use number 5 or number 7, that might be most appropriate. The big advantage with using milliradians, you can set your binoculars up or an app like the Kestrel to give you milliradian readouts, and it's far easier to change more immediately because although 9 rings are supplied, they are approximations for various calibers and cartridges and are not set precisely to every individual round and speed or hand load or ammunition type and bullet's ballistic coefficient. So we've set up a target ready. I'm just going to range find it now. and we've got 261 metres. Now I've decided to use the ASV ring number 6 purely because I'd rather just shoot a little bit low than a little bit high. So let's go with number 6, and I'm going to go out to 260 metres, which is there. So load a bit more of this ammunition, and now all we've done so far is zeroed the rifle and chronographed it. Now there's a little bit of right to left wind on here. I'm not going to start making lateral adjustments to the windage yet, but I am going to aim on the right edge of the gong. And there we go, we got a first round strike. It's maybe a tiny little bit high, but it's central, and I aimed on the right hand edge of that plate, which is compensating for the right to the left wind. So we've got a nice group of 3 shots there at 261 metres. Now that is how easy it is to set one of these things up initially. But I would thoroughly recommend don't try it on live game to start with, and set up multiple distances. Now you'll see I didn't actually do a box test on this scope to test the 1 centimetre click values. The reason I didn't do that on paper was because with a 0 stop it becomes a little bit of a faff having to take the 0 stop on and off when you want to go below your 0 point to dial the box. But there's nothing to stop you doing a box test completely vertically above your point of impact. I'm just going to take 2 more shots, put that group together, and then I'm going to move and shoot some different distances. Now, as a scope for use for stalking, that's quite a long shot on deer. I'm not saying it's the longest, I'm not saying, certainly not saying it's the shortest, but that's the kind of shot that this scope is ideal for. To sum up on the new version of the Zeiss V8 scope, the movement to a 30mm main tube rather than a 36 does make it easier to mount to more rifles. Although this rifle has a Picatinny rail installed on the Sauer, there are lots of rifles for whom proprietary mounts are the only things available, and they never got as far as making a 36mm mount or the adaptation to use a rail mount. Having a 30mm tube opens up the threshold for every sporting shooter generally there is. It's important to remember it's not a long-range target scope, although it is an extended range hunting scope with very accurate centimetre click adjustments and 2.1 milliradians of adjustment vertically, which is 210 centimetres at 100 metres. Light transmission through it from the 56mm front end, it is very bright and it's been excellent in poor light conditions. But that's also not to say it's not a fantastic scope during the day, because the superfine reticle in the second focal plane and this fast adjusting illumination control on the back do make it a very precise aiming solution, with a tiny red dot in the centre of the reticle, which is so quick to change intensity on using this rotary control. It remembers your setting, and of course if you tip the gun on its side or point it vertically, the illumination goes out, so you don't end up with a dead battery. Fast focus on the eyepiece goes from -3.5 to +2 diopter, so you are guaranteed a very sharp reticle picture, and being a Zeiss scope, the optics are first rate. There is no chromatic aberration, there is no colour shift, the actual contrast and resolution available and the subtension of the reticle on target is ultra precise. Parallax control is sharp, and you do get a nice image capability of locking straight in. There's no backlash and you don't feel any internal lens packages moving. Again, the zoom control on the rubberized collar here is super smooth. There are nice defined stops at either end. You don't feel as if you're clicking or squeezing up against any kind of internal resistance. And those helical lens packages inside that are moving backwards and forwards to create that change in magnification and zoom ratio, there is no noise from at all. Eye relief at 92mm is perfect for a sporting rifle. It's not too long that on a smaller rifle with less physical adjustment for the scope, you're finding yourself winding your neck off the scope, because sometimes it's all very well advertising Magnum eye relief, But unless you're going to use it on a Magnum rifle with quite a long stock and the ability to shift the scope forward, the eye relief is physically too long. But for an intermediate to large sporting rifle, 92mm is perfect. It's important to mention that the eye box on the scope isn't too critical. So when you're in the exit pupil correctly like this, through recoil, as your head position effectively changes slightly in terms of the eye relief, you don't lose target picture. And of course, at the lower magnification settings, that's even more so. This makes it great for keeping track of your quarry and how it reacts when it's shot. Well, thank you for watching the shooting show. I hope you've enjoyed this brief introduction to setting up and using the Zeiss V8 scope in this new version 2 format with the smaller main tube. Thank you to this week's show sponsors, and also thank you to Hornady for the generous supply of ammunition for use in testing and reviewing rifles and optics. Please like, please subscribe, please comment, because that's what keeps driving us to make more videos for your enjoyment. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.